Hey everybody, I'm Brianna Lenz, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different on my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the minimum 24 books that I want to read in 2024. So a minimum of 24 books in 2024. I don't really talk about books that often on my channel, but that's a huge part of my life and a huge part of the rest of my life. I am 35 years old. I have a 6-year-old and 11-year-old. I'm married and I've had a lovely time. And I've given a lot of time to my crafts, my family, everything. But a lot of what I haven't given time to is all the books on my bookshelf. Boy, do I like collecting them over the year though. And I really did like collecting a lot of the books that I want to read this coming year in 2023. And so I thought to myself, you know what? There's a couple things at play here into today's video. One, if I don't structure my year for 2024 and include reading into my channel, I won't do it. These will just go to the wayside like they did this past year and the year before that. Secondly, I am a homeschooling mom and I love homeschooling my children. And I am a huge advocate for continued education for us adults as well. I don't think that you need to go to college to educate yourself. You have all of the tools for self-education on the internet. Pick and choose what you think is true, as well as all of the books. And I don't think there's really ever been a time to read so many books as cheaply as you can now, via Kindle, via physical book, thrifting, book outlet, whatever. There are so many ways that you can read a lot if you're willing to kind of put in the footwork to look at these things. But and eBay. There's so many thrifty bookstores on eBay for great deals. So a lot of this is continued education for myself and research for books that I have always wanted to write but haven't written yet. So it's time to just say, you know what, I want to do it all and to stop telling myself no. So the theme for 2024 for me is I wonder what would happen. Wonder what would happen if I make myself guidelines and I stick to them. If I set myself deadlines and I stick to them. If I structure ahead of time, how much can I accomplish? And what's funny is if I schedule things out, I actually get way much more done than thinking ahead of time. And there are things that are going to change. There are going to be things that happen in the year that are like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do this. Oh well, suck it up, do it anyway. You know, it's going to be great. So a lot of what I have in my list are nonfiction, fantasy, and historical fiction. That is what I like to read. I used to read a lot of horror. I don't want to have as much of that in my life. And so there is one though that I've always wanted to read, and I will say that in October because I do typically like to have a darker gothic story in October. I love gothic novels very much. So a lot of this is what I want to learn more about, what I want to form my own opinion on, and just things that I really enjoy. And that is high fantasy. I love high fantasy. I love reading that. So I have books that are going to increase my knowledge, self-education, and the things that, like movies that I'd like to watch that I feel like are just, I don't care to watch modern fantasy as much anymore. And what you'll see too going into this list are a lot of physical books. Like I said, I have a 6-year-old and 11-year-old. And if I want to continue that encouragement for them to read and enjoy reading on their free time, they need to see mom and dad reading in their free time. They need to see mom and dad having a book in their hands, listening to an audiobook, discussing books. And it's part of just our way of life around here. And my kids aren't going to understand me being on a screen. Well, I'm reading. How are they supposed to know that I'm reading instead of scrolling on Instagram? They can't differentiate that. Like my 11-year-old can kind of, but probably the assumption is that I'm working on my social media because I'm usually on social media for Instagram, YouTube, those kinds of things. So it's really important to me for my kids in their stage of life to see me reading physical books as well and be excited to get physical books and all those things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I have I have a list, I have it structured, and so most of these, like I said, I have physical, but then there are some that I'm listening to via audiobook, or that it's just a fantasy series of like 6, and so I have it digitally, and I'll share that with you on the screen. And all of the series that I want to share, except for one, I will be, no, all of my series I'm counting as one book. That's why it's like a minimum of 24, but it's actually 35 because I'm counting the series as a single book. And these are just the minimum that I have to hit. So I can read more if I have the time, but I don't foresee how I would, because not only am I going to be reading these, I'm going to be writing about them because it's part of my research for books that I want to write. You know what I mean? Right? Okay. You see the formulation here. So we're setting out a purpose and we're making it happen. So the first month, we're going to go through January, February, all the way through. I'm not going to go by genre. I'm just going to tell you like what my plans are for these months. And so also, like if I talk about a book in July, by the end of July, that book has to be read. So there's going to be some collections where I can be reading some of the stories along the way, but it has to be finished by that month. So in January, I have first my nonfiction book that I want to read. I bought this from Book Outlet either last year or the year before, and it's 1917, Lennon, Wilson, and the Birth of the New World Disorder by Arthur Herman. So in April 1917, Woodrow Wilson, champion of American democracy but also segregation, advocate for free trade and a new world order based on freedom and justice, thrust the United States into the First World War in order to make the world safe for democracy, only to see his dreams for a liberal international system dissolve into chaos, bloodshed, and betrayal. That October, Vladimir Lenin, communist revolutionary and advocate for class war and dictatorship of the proletariat, would overthrow Russia's earlier democratic revolution that had toppled the powerful Tsar, all in the name of liberating humanity, but instead would set up the most repressive totalitarian regime in history, the Soviet Union. So in this incisive, fast-paced history, New York Times bestselling author Arthur Herman brilliantly reveals how Lenin and Wilson rewrote the rules of modern geopolitics. Prior to and through the end of World War I, countries marched into war only to advance or protect their national interests. After World War I, countries began going to war over ideas. Together, Lenin and Wilson unleashed the disruptive ideologies that would sweep the world, from nationalism and globalism to communism and terrorism, and that continue to shape our world today. Just a little light reading. But this has definitely been something that I'm very interested in. I think that World War I was transformative, as well as World War II was. But I think that this would be really good, just base knowledge for myself to have my own opinions. So this is my nonfiction for January. Then I also want to read Wicked. So this is, I thrifted this one from ARC in Colorado this past November. I want to read the Wicked series. This has been something that I've wanted to read since right out of high school, and I just never have. So I have Wicked, and I have the second book coming up. And I will be reading this one physically, but I will also be listening to this. I have this via audiobook, and I have a huge diamond painting project. So I'm a huge crafter, right? Like, this is a craft channel. And I have a huge diamond painting project for January that is 20 inches by 30 inches. So I have this book that I will be, again, physically reading and listening to via audiobook after I finish my series that I really like. This happens first, is the Poppy War series. And I'll have it up here. So the Poppy War series is fantastic. I'm halfway through book number 1. And I'm listening to this on my audiobook app. It used to be Scribd. It's called something else. I think it's called Ever, and I don't know what it's called. It's yellow and black. I'll put the symbol up here. But it's really great. And so I'm listening to this while I'm doing my diamond painting. And it's making the whole process go a lot faster. And my diamond painting is a huge dragon. And it's fantasy, and right now the gal is like channeling a phoenix. And then the second book's called The Dragon Republic, and it's it's set in Eastern culture, and it's wonderful. And so my goal for January is to finish the Poppy War series, Wicked, in 1917. And the Poppy War series is a set of 3 books. So technically that's 5. I'm halfway through the first book going into January, but knowing that I'm enjoying listening to it so much, I know that I'll be able to get through it. So I'm going to be listening to the Poppy War series via audiobook, Wicked, and then 1917. And I'll be doing writing on that too. So it's really interesting. Like the first book right now, we're getting into the part where everybody thought like shamanism was dead and being able to connect to the old gods, and it's very much real, but it was completely stifled for political reasons. And so it's getting very interesting, and people can channel a phoenix and just like start like emitting fire because they can channel the gods that have been forgotten, and it's incredible. And it has been it's living up to all the hype and praise that it has received. So we have that. So January. So we're up to 3 for January, and I'm just going to pick up my stack and then put it over here. Then in February, my nonfiction I'm going to have to put that there. My nonfiction for January is The Women's Room by Marilyn French. I don't know if you've heard this, but this was a huge book and very influential in feminism, modern feminism, bringing women from the home into the workroom. And I think that to have ideas on feminism and my idea of modern femininity and feminism, and obviously like I homeschool and I'm a stay-at-home mom and all that other stuff, I just want to be as educated on the history of feminism as I can be. I read Roe versus Wade 2 years ago. That was very interesting. This past year, I read This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, which has been incredibly eye-opening. And this year, I want to read The Women's Room. So a biting social commentary on an emotional world gone silently haywire, The Women's Room was in its time a modern allegorical novel that offered piercing insight into the social norms accepted so blindly and revered so completely. The Women's Room questions those accepted norms and poignantly examines the world of hopeful believers looking for new truths. So that is my nonfiction for February. I am still a firm believer in bowing to the opposition, which is, I feel like, a forgotten art. And so I think that it's important to read viewpoints from everything so you gather really good knowledge. And so then my next book that I want to read, this is a book that I picked up from Goodwill for 99 cents, and it is The Sinner by Petra Hamasfar. On a sunny summer afternoon by the lake, Cora Bender stabs a complete stranger to death. Why? What would cause this quiet, kind young mother to commit such a startling act of violence in front of her family and friends? Cora quickly confesses, and it seems like an open and shut case, but the police commissioner, haunted by these unanswered questions, refuses to close the file and begins his own personal investigation. So begins the slow unraveling of Cora's past, a harrowing descent into the depths of her psyche and the violent secrets buried deep within. An international bestseller by the novelist hailed as Germany's Patricia Highsmith, The Sinner is a dark, spellbinding psychological thriller where the truth is to be questioned at every turn. So The Guardian says that this is hauntingly insightful and sensitive. So again, very interesting. I like to read a lot about women, and I just like to know, I think women are just so interesting, and there is just such there's an evolution of like the women's psyche right now of like, from where there was a huge turning point of The Women's Room, and I feel like we're entering another huge turning point, and so many people are going back to traditional ideas and a life that like my husband and I have lived basically our whole marriage, but there's just this huge thing, just so much ideas of feminism, waves of different ideas of what, like, how women should behave, hailed because they behave this way, be hailed because they behave that way, and it's just interesting. And okay, so this one's kind of random. I mean, not by kind of, it's completely random. I found this at Goodwill, and this one was $2.99 because it was hardback, and it's An Assassin in Utopia, the true story of a 19th century sex cult and a president's murder. Written with a verve and dash. An Assassin in Utopia is a delightful romp through an intriguing and little-known part of 19th century American history. And somebody says, ABC News and ESPN reporter says, this is like David McCulloch on acid. So I found this. I would have never have like picked this up without it. I don't know. I just saw this at Goodwill and I thought, well, that looks interesting. And it's a part of history that none of us know about. I've never heard about it. So that is February. I thought that would go well for Valentine's Day. Yeah, so that's February. Let's see, March. Okay, March. My nonfiction for March is The Parasitic Mind, How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense. I've had this on my shelf for like over a year, and I've wanted to read it. I've tried reading it multiple times, and I haven't been able to get into it, and I've abandoned it like 20 pages in, probably like 3 times. Sorry, my foot just hit my thing. But I know that I need to read it because I think it'll give me a good perspective, and so I need to read this. And so March, this is happening. It's not huge. It's just, I don't know. I just haven't been able to get into it, and so I need to get over it. There's a war against truth, and if we don't win it, intellectual freedom will be a casualty. The West's commitment to freedom, reason, and true liberalism has never been more seriously threatened than it is today by the stifling forces of political correctness. So I'm going to read this. Next, Michael Crichton is my absolute favorite author, and I like to read one Michael Crichton book every year, and I tried reading this last year, and I just didn't devote the time to it, so I'm actually behind. But I want to read Micro by Michael Crichton, and this is in a locked Honolulu office building, 3 men are found dead, covered in ultra-fine razor-sharp cuts. The only clue left behind is a tiny bladed robot. In the lush forests of Oahu, trillions of microorganisms are being discovered, feeding a search for priceless drugs. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, 7 graduate students are recruited by a microbiology startup and dispatched to a mysterious lab in Hawaii. There they are promised access to tools that will open a whole new scientific frontier. But once in the rainforest, the scientists are thrust into a hostile wilderness where they find themselves prey to a technology of radical and unbridled power. To survive, they must harness the inherent forces of nature itself. An instant classic micro pits nature against technology in vintage Crichton fashion. So yeah, I can't wait to read this. Yeah, Michael Crichton is my absolute favorite. Absolute favorite. He's the author of Jurassic Park, Congo. He's wonderful. And then next in March, I have The Son of a Witch. This is the follow-up to Wicked. And so 10 years after the publication of Wicked, beloved novelist Gregory Maguire returns at last to the land of Oz. There he introduces us to Lear, an adolescent boy last seen hiding in the shadows of the castle after Dorothy did in The Witch. Bruised, comatose, and left for dead in a gully, Lear is shattered in spirit as well as in form, but he is tended to at the cloister of St. Glinda by the silent novice called Candle, who wills him back to life with her musical gifts. What dark force left Lear in this condition? Is he really Elphaba's son? He has her broom and her cape, but what of her powers? So if I'm going to read the first one, I know that I need to read the second one quickly because otherwise I just won't finish the series. Like I've read 1 or 2 books of series and then not finish them because I don't remember the storylines and I don't care to go back. So if I'm going to start a series, like I need to finish it. So that is the first quarter, if you will. Then we have April. So let's see. In April, we have my nonfiction choice. This is also another Goodwill purchase for $2.99 because it's hardback. And I can heat release these. I just haven't done it yet. So this is called The Genealogical Adam and Eve, The Surprising Science of Universal Ancestry. Evolutionary science teaches that humans arose as a population sharing common ancestors with other animals. Most readers of the book of Genesis in the past understood all humans descended from Adam and Eve, a couple specially created by God. These 2 teachings seem contradictory, but is that necessarily so? In the fractured conversation of human origins, can new insight guide us to solid ground in both science and theology? So if you can't tell, I just like to question everything and research everything because I want to know what I think about it versus what somebody else has decided in history or told me like I should live my life this way. I want to decide for myself my own viewpoints, and I like to just learn about everything, you know? And so there's that one. Next, I have The Light Between Oceans. This was very popular. This is something else that I picked up. So this was a 99-cent find. And I guess it's also a movie now. After 4 harrowing years on the Western Front, Tom Shelburne returns to Australia and takes a job as a lighthouse keeper on Janus Rock, nearly half a day's journey from the coast. To this isolated island where the supply boat comes once a season, Tom brings a young, bold, and loving wife, Isabel. Years later, after 2 miscarriages and 1 stillbirth, the grieving Isabel hears a baby's cry on the wind. A boat has washed up on shore carrying a dead man and a living baby. Tom, who keeps meticulous records and whose moral principles have withstood a horrific war, wants to report the man and infant immediately, but Isabel insists the baby is a gift from God, and against Tom's judgment, they claim her as their own and name her Lucy. When she is 2, Tom and Isabel return to the mainland and are reminded that there are other people in the world. Their choice has devastated one of them. So this is from the New Yorker. Told with the authoritative simplicity of a fable, Stedman's intricate descriptions of the craggy Australian coastline and her easy master of an old-time provincial vernacular are engrossing. As the couple at the lighthouse are drawn into an increasingly tragic set of consequences, these remote, strange lives are rendered immediate and familiar. So, pretty cool. So this gal, M.L. Stedman, was born and raised in Western Australia and now lives in London. So I can't wait to read this. This has been on my list for a long time. And then lastly, here's another one that I wouldn't have picked up if I hadn't seen this at Goodwill. So it's called The Painted Girls by Kathy Marie Buchanan. I don't think I've been saying the authors for all of these. Sorry about that. This is a heart-rendering novel set in Belle Epoque Paris, inspired by the real-life model for Edgar Degas' little dancer aged 14 in a notorious criminal trial of the era. So Edgar Degas was my favorite painter growing up. I just loved him. I was able to see paintings of his when my dad took me to an art museum in San Diego when I was just a kid, and it really transformed my idea and love for art as well as Claude Monet. But I just loved Degas when I was younger. I've never been drawn to dancing or ballerinas or anything like that. I think it was how he portrayed women. And a lot, actually, what I really love are his paintings of the women in the laundry rooms. Those are my favorite because I think that those are just mothers working as hard as they could in France, doing whatever they could to survive. And it was just like the working woman and just I don't know, I just really liked those. But so I definitely wanted to read this one because this one's so different. It's just for fun for me because you got to have fun and you got to have the other ones too. Yeah, so this one I think will be really interesting. I don't know if I showed it or not, but this is what the cover of it is. And I love picking up books like this at Goodwill because or like any thrift store, it's just in my local thrift stores, Goodwill. Because I wouldn't have known about these otherwise. Okay, moving on. Okay, so May. So May, I have one physical book for May, and then I'll explain. So for May, I have another Goodwill book that I picked up. No, this was at my local consignment shop. It's Looting Spiral Mounds, An American King Tut's Tomb by David LaVere. So I'll read the first 2 paragraphs. So when a group of relic hunters drove their picks into a lost Indian burial crypt in eastern Oklahoma, I live in eastern Oklahoma, in 1935, they unearthed a vast treasure trove of Mississippian art, considered by many at the time to be America's answer to King Tut's tomb. They also ignited a controversy that continues to have repercussions throughout archaeological and American Indian communities. The Spiral Mountains contain some of the most impressive pre-Columbian Indian art ever found, all piled atop hundreds of human skeletons. In Looting Spiral Mountains, David LaVere takes readers behind the scenes to recreate a Great Depression-era archaeological adventure worthy of Indiana Jones. So I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but I'm so interested in all of the cover-ups of ancient science, ancient heritage in America, dams, there's just where the dams are built, what do they cover up, cities that are undercover. I'm just so curious about it all. And keep in mind, a lot of this is research for future writing. So this is definitely another one that I wouldn't have known about. Like, I've heard about it, and so when I found this, I was like, I couldn't believe it. So this is my only physical book for May. I'm gonna have to figure out a new system here. Then in May, I want to have finished the Legends of the First Empire series by Michael J. Sullivan. And so I will have the books up here on the screen. So this is a series of 6. It's a fantasy series. I'm currently reading it. I started this back in 2021 and I didn't finish it. This year I've started in December and I absolutely love it. I have access to all 6 books on my library account, Libby, via my local library. And so I want to read through them as fast as I can before they go away. And if I really love this series, I'll purchase my own set. But yeah, The Age of Myth is book number 1, and it is absolutely fantastic. I love it. It's like, if you like, if you've watched the Barbarian show, I think it's called on Netflix, like it's that time period of like early civilization, pre-Jesus time period, but it's set in a fantasy world where there's like gods and stuff like that. It's just incredible. And so this is a series that I want to read. And like I said before, if I finish one book in a series, like I need to immediately read the next one. Otherwise, I will lose interest. I'll forget storylines, I'll forget characters, and I will never come back to it. So this is my goal to have finished by the end of May. So if I haven't read as many of them as I want to, or I would have liked to leading up to May, then May is my month to completely catch up and finish that entire series. So moving on from May, we have June. So in June, I like to read U.S. history books, U.S. Historical fiction books leading up to 4th of July, because you go from Memorial Day to 4th of July, and I like reading those kinds of books. So, and I for the past couple of years, I've read books about Lincoln. So this year I have another one where it's just in more information into modern ideas of past history, right? Yeah. So this one is The Broken Constitution, Lincoln, Slavery, and the Refounding of America. This is one that I think I bought off of Book Outlet, which is another great source for books like this that you can just look through and not know like existed. When Abraham Lincoln assumed the presidency in 1861, the United States constitutional arrangements were not the ones we know today. It was widely believed that the federal government could not use armed forces to prevent a state from succeeding. It was also assumed that it had no authority over slavery in states where the institution existed, and that basic civil liberties could not be suspended during a rebellion without the consent of Congress. As President Lincoln broke decisively with all these precedents, deliberately and repeatedly violating the United States founding principles. To what end? How did Lincoln understand the Constitution, and how did he transform it? And there's more in this, in the slave synopsis, but that basically gives you the gist. And so I'm really interested, because I'm so interested in the Civil War. Like, there is an America of the Founding Fathers. There is an America of the Founding Fathers after the last Founding Father died, leading up to the Civil War. Then there's the America of the Civil War. Then there's the, what is it called? There's that period that's called after the Civil War of the South. What is that? I'm losing it. I can't think of it. But there's the Reconstruction period, I believe, after the Civil War, because the South basically just got annihilated. And then you have, World War I, then you have World War II. Like, there are so many different things that lead up to major policy change, maybe so much constitutional rewritings and amendments and all that kind of stuff. And this is a huge part of it. So that is something that I want to know more of, and that is why I'm reading that one in June. What else do I have in June? Oh, where's that book at? Oh, it's in my lap. Okay. So in June, this one is probably my most ridiculous goal of the entire year, because it is, okay, so I told you the Poppy Wars is counting as one book. The Michael J. Sullivan series, those are 6 books, but I'm counting them as one. This is another one where it's actually 3 books, but it's in one. And this is the Dragon Riders of Pern. I am so excited to read this. I didn't know where I was going to put this on my list, but I really want to read this year. And so I'm just going to have to figure it out. And this is, like I said, 3 books. It's Dragonflight, Dragon Quest, and The White Dragon. This is written by Anne McCaffrey, and it is like classic fantasy, classic sci-fi. I posted a picture of this with my diamond art dragon, and people were like, I love that series, love it, love it, love it. So I'm excited. So I definitely want to read this. Again, this is 3 books, and it gets crazy. I mean, it's like 800 pages, but it should be fine. I think, and it'll make me read the entire series like in one go. So I'll finish it. So I'm excited. So that is June. Now, July. We are halfway through. Let's see if I can make this in 45 minutes. I think I'll be able to. So July, things start to take a bit of a turn because I have a huge book that I actually asked for Christmas of last year. So I got this Christmas 2022. My idea was to read this all of 2023. Never touched it. So I have a goal. Now, I don't want to read this entire book in July. This book is upwards of 800 pages as well, but it's not a fast read. Like, I'm not like reading a movie like I am with the Dragon Riders of Pern. Like, this is dense information, and I want to be able to absorb it. I want to be able to write about it. I want to be able to really like critically think about what I'm reading and retain it. So I have broken this up to blocks of 150. So in July, I want to read pages 1 through 150. What the hell am I talking about? I'm talking about Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time by Carol Quigley. And this has been a reprinting. The original printings, I believe, were like extremely tiny and really difficult to read, but this printing is much easier to read, and I think it'll be a nice experience. I'm not worried about breaking the spine on books. This one is probably like the nicest this book will ever look. It's going to be completely annotated, have notes in it, and the spine's going to be broken, and it's going to be great. So this one, Tragedy and Hope, shows the years 1895 to 1950 as a period of transition from the world dominated by Europe in the 19th century to the world of 3 blocks in the 20th century. With clarity, perspective, and cumulative impact, Professor Quigley examines the nature of that transition through 2 world wars and a worldwide economic depression. As an interpretive historian, he tries to show each event in the full complexity of its historical context. The result is a unique work, notable in several ways. It gives a picture of the world in terms of the influence of different cultures and outlooks upon each other. It shows more completely than in any similar work the influence of science and technology on human life. And it explains with unprecedented clarity how the intricate financial and commercial patterns of the West prior to 1914 influenced the development of today's world. So this is just one of those books that's kind of coveted. Like, this is such an eye-opening idea of how our modern world became what it is. And so I firmly believe that by reading this, I'll be inspired to read so many new things in 2025. I already know going into 2025, I want to read more books about, 1, I want to read more C.S. Lewis books, and 2, I want to read more informational texts on the Roman Empire and the beginning of like Catholicism and Roman Catholic, like the Roman Catholic Empire and all that. I want to learn more about the origins of that and other things, but that's next year. So yeah, so I want to do this. So this is going to be broken up into chunks of 150 for the rest of the year. So this is page 150 right here. And if I can do that, then it's achievable because I'm breaking it up. So yeah, so that is for the entire rest of the year. So Tragedy and Hope. Then I have The Man in the High Castle. I watched like the first half of the season 1 of the series and it was good, but I just want to read the book. It's always been on my list. I found this at Goodwill for 99 cents, and so I said, this is my sign. So this is The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. The single most resonant and carefully imagined book of Dick's career by the New York Times. So just a quick synopsis. In America in 1962, slavery is legal once again. The few Jews who still survive hide under assumed names. In San Francisco, the I Ching is as common as the Yellow Pages. I'm probably butchering that. All because some 20 years earlier, the United States lost a war and is now occupied by Nazi Germany and Japan. This harrowing Hugo Award-winning novel is a work that established Philip K. Dick as an innovator in science fiction while breaking the barrier between science fiction and the serious novel of ideas. In it, Dick offers a haunting vision of history as a nightmare from which it may be just be possible to wake. Yeah. So 1928 to 1982. There's a picture of him. He looks so young. Do you know what I mean? Like, he just looks like some guy that would be walking down the street. It's hard to believe that he died in 82. Anyway, so, oh, wow. I didn't really, okay, I just read this. So a little bit more about Philip K. Dick. So Philip K. Dick, born 1928, died 1982, wrote 121 short stories and 45 novels, and is considered one of the most visionary writers of the 20th century. His work is included in the Library of America and has been translated into more than 25 languages. 11 works have been adapted to film, including Blade Runner, based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Did I just find my next Michael Crichton, possibly? I had no idea. Okay. Then he also did Total Recall, Minority Report, and A Scanner Darkly, which I don't know that one, but I know those other ones. Ooh. Ooh, okay. I see 2025 coming in already. See, there's just not enough time. That's why I gotta organize this. And then lastly, I want to read this one because I was going through my year and I was going over this list with my daughter, and I was like, I don't really have like many older books or classics. And because she was asking me which books I've read on my shelf. And so I was going through and I was like, oh, I need to read more of like the classics and stuff that I have from some of my authors that I've read. So that's how this came to be. I'm piling this one into, what month am I in? July. And it is Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle, a freewheeling vehicle, an unforgettable ride, the New York Times. And I have a big old sticker on the back. I got this a couple years ago. Oh, if I got this from ARC, I've had this since I lived in Colorado. So I've had this on my shelf for over 5 years and haven't read it. But I love this edition. I like these editions a lot. I have another Kurt Vonnegut in this one. What's his, And So It Goes. What's that book? I read that one. Oh, there it is. Oh, please don't make anything fall on me. Okay. Slaughterhouse-Five. Like, everybody has read this one. Well, or like say that they want to or whatever. Like, this went through a moment back in the 2000s. But I read this one, and so I'm going to read Cat's Cradle. That's my next one. And I'm going to keep collecting. So I buy a lot of books at Goodwill, but I also, like, I have certain publications that I like of certain books or by certain authors, and so I won't buy them until I find them. I like these. So Slaughterhouse-Five, I'll just put you up there. This is for July. Let's stay organized. Okay, August. So August, I'm going to be reading Tragedy and Hope, right? Pages 151. Oh, I need to hurry up. Pages 151 through 300. Then by the end of August, I should have read the Book of Viking Myths. This is one that I'm going to be reading a little bit every month, and then it should be finished by August. So I don't know when I'm actually going to pick this up. I might finish this before August, but the deadline to have this read by is August. And it's from the Voyages of Leif Erikson and the Deeds of Odin, the storied history and folklore of the Vikings. My 11-year-old's like, Mom, can I read that? And I was like, let's wait a little bit. Let Mom read it, and then we'll see, because Viking myths are no joke. Also, so we have the Viking myths, we have 151 through 130, and then here is where my next fantasy story comes into play. And I have this. I got this, and I'm so happy. I got this last year, but I have not read it. What is it? It's the first books of the Wheel of Time series, and this has been on my list forever to want to read. So if I don't put this in here, I'm not going to read it. I have it. Beautiful. Got this set from Book Outlet. Highly recommend it, by the way. And this is published by Tor. So I'm interested to see what the storylines are in here. It's like one of the most hyped series right now, and has been. And I like a lot of classic fantasy. So I'm curious. If Tor's publishing it, I'm a little bit cautious, but I think that it'll be great, and I think it'll be worth me having had the knowledge of reading it. And I honestly, like, it has dragons, and I love dragons. So I'm breaking this series up into, the first one will be The Wheel of Time, Book 1, The Eye of the World. So if you want to see an incredible video, NerdForge released a video within the last few months, and they did like the entire series, the entire Wheel of Time series in one massive book. It is so fun to watch. It's so incredible. And so if you are a huge Robert Jordan, Brandon Sanderson fan, then I highly encourage you. I'll have that video link down below. They don't know who I am. I just think they're amazing. And so, yeah, so Robert Jordan, The Wheel of Time. And this book is a chunky book. This book is 700 pages. However, fantasy, I feel like, is like reading a thriller. It just is, it's a ride. It's for enjoyment. And so I'm so stoked. I'm so excited because I want more dragon books in my life. And I can't wait to see what all the hype is. So keep this in mind because I have book 1, which is The Eye of the World. I'll keep this out and just try to be really nice with it. And then so that's August. September, I have Tragedy and Hope, pages 301 through 450. Then I have Robinson Crusoe. I got this at Goodwill recently, and I was like, yeah, that's a classic that I haven't read. So I want to read this. I've heard about it, and I've never read it, never studied it, never had to do anything in any of my classes for it. And so this is definitely on my list. In 1704, a young seaman named Alexander Selkirk, after arguing with his captain, was left at his own request on the island of Masatierra off the coast of Chile. He was rescued in 1709, and accounts of his struggles thrilled England. So yeah, I am very excited. And it has those, like, there's a word for this, those pages. They're like, see if I can, you know? There's a specific word for those types of pages in a book. And this is like one of my favorite. Borders, yeah. Borders did a whole bunch of classics in this. And this is like when I took English courses in college. These are my favorite to get. And so, nostalgia. So that is on my list, as well as book. Okay, I'm getting a little confused. Robinson Crusoe, and then that's it, I guess, for September. So if I have any catching up to do, I guess I can do that. But yeah, so that is September. And then, oh yeah, okay. So then, because things start to get busier, like as I'm preparing for fall and Christmas, because that's such a huge busy time for my channel, especially. And we start homeschool. So I took September and I downgraded like how much I wanted to read in September. And then in October, I have Tragedy and Hope, pages 451 through 600. Then I have, this is the one Gothic horror book that I've wanted to read. And this is Anne Rice's The Mummy, or Ramesses the Damned. Vintage Anne Rice, quickly paced, elegantly erotic, and full of enchanting terror. So like, I'm not a huge advocate for Anne Rice really because she is a very erotic author. However, I've always wanted to read this. I've always wanted to read this. So now is the time. So Ramesses the Great lives, but having drunk the elixir of life, he is now Ramesses the Damned, doomed forever to wander the earth, desperate to quell hungers that can never be satisfied, for food, for wine, for women. Reawakened in opulent Edwardian London, he becomes Dr. Ramsay. Expert in Egyptology, he also becomes a close companion of voluptuous adventuress Julie Stratford, heiress to a vast shipping fortune and the center of a group of jaded aristocrats with appetites of their own to appease. But the pleasures Ramses enjoys with Julie cannot soothe him, stirring memories of his last reawakening at the behest of Cleopatra, his beloved queen of Egypt, burn in his immortal soul. And though he is immortal, he is still all too human. His intense longing for his great love, undiminished over the centuries, will force him to commit an act that will place everyone around him in the gravest danger. Darkly Magical by USA Today. So. 1989 is when this was published, so who knows? This could have anything in it. Stephen King from the 80s had, you name it, people loved it. And it's crazy. I can't even imagine what's going to be in The Mummy by Anne Rice. So that's my October pick for sure for my gothic, crazy, dark one. And then I also have The Alchemist. This has been on my shelf for a very long time and I've always wanted to read it. So The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation from The Alchemist. So Paulo Coelho's enchanting novel has inspired a devoted following around the world. This story, dazzling in its powerful simplicity and soul-stirring wisdom, is about an Andalusian shepherd boy named Santiago, who travels from his homeland in Spain to the Egyptian desert in search of a treasure buried near the pyramids. Along the way, he meets a gypsy woman, a man who calls himself king, and an alchemist, all of whom point Santiago in the direction of his quest. No one knows what the treasure is or if Santiago will be able to surmount the obstacles in his path, but what starts out as a journey to find worldly goods turn into a discovery of the treasure found within. Lush, evocative, and deeply humane, the story of Santiago is an eternal testament to the transforming power of our dreams and the importance of listening to our hearts. Also, October is my birthday month, and I'm cross-stitching a gypsy, the Gypsy Queen, this year. So this was the year I had to read it, finally. So yeah, so that is October. Then, let's see, November. So we have Tragedy and Hope, pages 600 through 750, and again, it starts to get really busy. So I have one, which is the second book, 2 of the Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt. And this book is over 600 pages. So that looks great. Can't wait. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass. What was, what will be, and what is may yet fall under the shadow. Let the dragon ride again. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. Sounds fantastic to me. Then you have December. So we have Tragedy and Hope, pages 750 to the end, 751 to the end, which is in the 800 number, somewhere around there. And then we have The Dragon Reborn, which is book 3 of the Wheel of Time series. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass. What was, will be, and what is may yet fall under the shadow. Again, it says, let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. And so it has this on the back. And then this is the cover photo for book number 3. So yeah. So that is my goal. So I will have, this is also a series. So yeah, I have a lot of reading in my future. I'm very excited about it. I am very much looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to all of the knowledge that I'm about to consume and be able to interpret for myself. So looking forward to my kids seeing me read all of these books that are informational, that help my brain grow, informational that I enjoy, seeing me not be afraid to just like what I like. I'm excited for them to see me post this video onto my channel. And I'm excited for books to be more heavily on my channel. I'm not going to be talking about politics on my channel. These are just books that I choose to read, and I would hope that doesn't influence you one way or another. Just the only thing that I hope that you get out of it is that if you've ever been wanting to research something for yourself, I hope that you decide, you know what, 2024 is the year that you're going to go learn more about that subject. 2024 is the year that you decide, you know what, I'm going to go pick up that extra book. Or, you know what, I've always been interested in Egyptology. I'm going to go read something else about it. Just whatever it is, you know, and it can be boring or it can be completely cuckoo. But most of us watching this right now are adults, right? So if there's just anything that you're more interested in learning about, you're the only one stopping you. You want to learn how to crochet? Hang out with me this year. I'm going to teach you how to crochet. You want to learn how to knit? Hang out with me. I'm going to teach you how to knit. You want to know more about cross-stitching? Hang out with me. I'm going to enable the stink out of you into buying new cross-stitch patterns because that is so much fun. But yeah, I've got so many goals going into 2024. And on New Year's Day, I'll be releasing 24 projects in 2024. And I'm slowing things down and picking up bigger projects, bigger goals. And this is the year where I wonder, what if I were to be my own best friend versus my own enemy? Versus my own best enemy. And so that is what this year is about. And to me, the best way that I could think about being my own best friend is by allowing myself to just read and write as much as I can, on top of all of the other things that I still want to do, including crafting, because that is a huge part of my life. And this is just, the way that this goes hand in hand with homeschooling my children is just monumental in my mind. And so it's very important to me. And that's kind of just a message that I just wanted to portray to you. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, and thanks for watching if you've made it all the way to the end. This is a long video. So I appreciate you. If you haven't already, now would be a great time, now that we're waking up from the dream of all of these books, to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, make sure that you have that notification bell turned on so that way you're notified every time I post a video. Most likely it's going to be craft related, but you never know when one of my book related videos are going to pop up because I'm going to keep up every month. Lastly, if you do enjoy today's video, it would be so helpful to me if you liked it because that tells the YouTube algorithm to keep sharing my content to other people. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, it would be really great. And I just really want to say I appreciate your time. An hour video is no joke, and so I appreciate you making it all the way to the end. And I will see you guys in my next project and in my next video. Bye.